I think you're amazing.
You are too, Henry.
Thank you so much. Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate you what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection. God bless you. I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you for having us.
Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Such an honor to be here with you today, and I'm so excited to have my dear and precious friend, Jermaine Thomas, on the show with us today. We have a very interesting subject that he's going to be talking about, his story of deconstruction, religiosity, and all that type of stuff. I really believe is going to really help many of you that's trying to deconstruct, that's trying to find a better way of living. Jermaine, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Henry, man. Thanks for inviting me, and it's definitely an honor to be here and to share this space with you, man. So thanks a lot.
Too. I'll be honest with you. I've been looking forward to this interview, and I'm really excited to hear your perspective on it. We hear a lot of people talking about deconstruction, but most people deconstruct only to go back into something which is still the same thing, but calling it something different. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story. And if you wouldn't mind letting us know a little bit about yourself, and then after that, go ahead and share your story.
Yeah, man. Listen, I was the Christian of Christians. I was a street evangelist. I would preach the gospel of Jesus on the city streets of Chicago. I would get on the trains and the buses and bring souls to Christ. I was a part of a ministry team. I was part of helped start a drug outreach ministry and helped tons and tons of people, man. Had a healing miracle ministry, as they would say. I was, if there was a picture of a poster of a charismatic Christian, and you looked in there, you would see my picture. Mm-hmm. I was Seven Mountain Kingdom through and through. Some people reference me as an apostle. Some people would have referenced me as a prophet. And so I was in the thick of it, man. Whatever it was to be Christian to do, I was there doing it.
Wow. So were you raised in church?
No, actually, when I share my story, often I start with referencing that I was a cultural Christian, meaning that by tradition we were Baptists, and we would go to church on Easter and funerals. Mm-hmm. But I came to Christ, you would say, at an early age. There was the Baptist church, white Baptist church, they'll pick up all the kids in the neighborhood. And so my mom would just ship us off because I think it was an opportunity for her to have some time to herself.
Yeah.
And so the allure was, I think about Pinocchio, the scene in Pinocchio when they go to the island and they eat all the candy and turn to donkeys and stuff. Mm-hmm. So the lure was games, cookies, and girls.
Yeah.
And so one particular day, the pastor, like I said, they set us up with the cookies and stuff. It was the overplay for the underplay, because now we got to come downstairs and hear the message, right? Mm. And the message was about God's love and also God's wrath.
Yeah.
So, as a 9 or 10-year-old at that time, I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
So if it's gonna make a decision for Jesus, I'm it, because
Yeah.
all the movies I've watched in my childhood, The Exorcist, all the scary movies, we were scary movie heads. All the pop culture horror movies of the 80s and early 90s, we were acclimated in that. So I ain't want no parts of the devil, and I ain't want no parts of hell. So I made a decision to put Jesus in my heart at 9 years old. Now, before then, I was always an open spiritual person. You would say, very open to nature, very open to spiritual things. But for me, they called me early and kind of shepherd me into this Christian thing. And so I would get my sister up, probably about 9, 10. I would get my sister up. My mom wasn't going to church. She was a cultural Christian. I'm saved now.
Yeah.
So I gotta get this thing right. So I would get up. I would get my 9-year-old self up, my sister up. She was 7 at the time, and take us to church. And then after church, we'll go home. And I didn't like my mom smoking cigarettes. She was a sinner smoking cigarettes, and so I would
Good
put.
Lord.
I was gonna help that sinner stop smoking, so I would put cigarette poppers in her cigarettes.
Oh my God.
So
Oh
yeah,
my.
I was Christian through and through.
You know, when you were raised in Christianity, and you were, I like to use the word program, to believe certain, fundamental messages and things like that. What was the highlight in your life where you kind of hit the brakes and was like, started asking questions and maybe become a little leery of it? When did that moment, can you recall that moment when that happened for you?
Yeah, it was. Now I had tons of questions, right? And I would get in trouble. I would get in trouble in Bible studies because you just, you know, uh,
I can see that now.
I would get in trouble in Bible study because I had a lot of questions, and so I'll get on people's nerves. So I wouldn't get clear answers because I was hearing, different streams of thought within Christianity. I was an avid TBN follower. So whatever TBN wanted, I gave because I wanted to get them little booklets and trinkets.
Hmm.
And I got a soda God, brother. But I would ask questions. I actually got kicked out the Methodist church because I got filled with the Holy Ghost because I was
Hmm.
asking questions about the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And I was told there was no such thing. So yeah, I always had questions. I was always an inquisitive kid. And so I was the type of kid you tell me don't go left. You gonna explain to me, but I'm still gonna go left and figure it out for myself.
Hmm.
So that just kind of stuck with me. I thank God it did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but what was the linchpin for me was several things. It was the hell. It was questions about hell. It was questions about the end times because there's different viewpoints of
Yeah.
prophecies. And I remember praying. I was a spiritual warfare. I was the prayer warrior and intercessor. And so one day I was praying, tearing down the strongholds.
Yeah. Go,
And then
brother.
a
Go to
question,
war.
yeah, a question popped in my head. And it was like, man, is it more demons than humans? Because how many times we got to pray and lock them up? How many
Yeah.
demons is it really? So that was one of the now I had questions, but I would suppress them, because my indoctrination programming would kicking in and would repress and suppress, critical thought and critical thinking. But I always had questions, and it just there just wasn't any safe spaces
Hmm.
to ask them, right? because people would look at you weird or different, and I wanted to be a part of the crowd. So there was an aspect of my own intellect that I suppressed and repressed, just for the sake of conformity and fitting in. But yeah, hell was the linchpin for me, and then it started the domino effect after that.
Have you received any opposition as a result of your evolution?
Oh, hell yeah. Sure. Listen,
So there may be somebody that's watching that has a similar story to yours, and a lot of us get. I was thinking about this earlier, that when I was heavily involved in it, like, they didn't attack me, they didn't fight me, they didn't come against me. As long as you were agreeing with them, with everything, there was no problem. It was only when I tiptoed out of the religious box is when I started getting name called, insulted. Somebody today said that I was that she said she was sad that I walked away from the faith. All these other things that people say, and I'm to the point now where I don't even try to explain myself to people. I'm like, you know what? If you want to believe that, you can. But a lot of us get opposition when you go against the popular trend, when you go against what has been commonly known as traditionalism. Like, what was that like for you? How were you able to process that? Did you lose friendships? I mean, like, what happened?
Man, I've been kicked out of association. I was disbanded. I was a professor of an online Bible college, and I was excommunicated from that, cut off from my students. So yeah, it's ghosting is the fundamentalist Christian way.
Wow,
so
he said it again. I think that was powerful.
Yeah, ghosting is the fundamentalist Christian way.
And when you say ghosting, can you explain to the people what that means?
Oh yeah, people just cut you off, don't give you, any
no closure
valid
or nothing. I was like, hold on, they blocked me.
no recourse of conversation.
You're my brother in Christ. I'm there with you to the end.
Where y'all at?
Yeah, where you at?
Yeah,
it's comical, but it's kind of sad too at the same time.
Yeah. My moral center is I give no flux.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that has always been a part of my temperament. To one degree or another. Of course it's frustrating, to experience those types of things. But, I tell people all the time, social services, has been my saving grace. And I've been in social services for over 20 years. And so they gave me tools and resources. And so when these things started to happen, I understood that.
I'm sorry.
I understood that, mentally, cognitively, there's a lot of things going on inside that person. And so I never had to internalize those things. Every behavior reflects a need, right? It's something, within themselves. And the reality of it is for a person to recognize they I was a credible person, ethical person, in those things. I fit the mold, the Christian mold of, whatever that the standard is. I fit that mold. I'm competent, confident, in the things that I say. People listen to me, but all of a sudden now I'm off, something's wrong or whatever. And for the people to recognize if there's some truth in you, something in them would have to say, you know what, where did I miss it at? And so it's easy to throw off on other people. It's easy to project. It's easy to name call. It takes a lot of muscle in the brain muscle, right, into intellect, into reason objectively. And so people rather cut you off, altogether, because they don't want to deal with that thing in them, because there may be some truth in what you're saying, and I don't want to accept that. It's like the scene in the Matrix, right? Where the one guy, he was with them, and then he was like, you know what? I'd rather go back into the Matrix. Make me, make me a kingpin, than to deal with reality.
Yeah.
So he was willing to sacrifice his friendships to go in. And so, the wheelhouse of fundamental Christianity is a endless circle. It's like a hamster wheel. And there's maybe a joy in it for a hamster to do that. Maybe there's an addiction to that, but it's all cognitive, right? There's research that affirms that fundamentalism changes the brain. It changes the brain chemistry. Because you got to think about it. It's rigid. You're very rigid, in your world outlook. You sometimes you're
closed-minded.
Closed-minded. You're is self-depreciating of the person or your humanhood, right? Because I can't see myself. I have to see Jesus and not myself.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a like I said, research. That's what research says, that fundamentalism is closely associated, with a mental illness.
Yeah.
Hate changes the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It changed the chemistry and the property of the brain. Thank God for neuroplasticity. You know what I mean? We could, change that. But that takes work. You know what I mean? People are, what we've done is we've dismissed our Nicodemuses, in our doubting Thomases, and we have not made spaces for them. And we have not made our faith spaces safe for our Nicodemuses and our doubting Thomases. And so if Jesus is to be of any model, he definitely modeled, what it is to deal with a Nicodemus,
Mm-hmm.
What it is to sit with a doubting Thomas, right? He didn't scold him. He didn't, oh, you don't believe? You don't believe Thomas? I'm finna ghost you. I'm out of here. So Jesus disappears back out the door. You know what I mean? Or whatever that was. But the Christian scriptures, gives them a model, of what to do. But again, like I said, it's and I don't fault them, right? We all to some degree or another have been indoctrinated, right? We swallowed, the BS, the belief system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's culturally, that's through conditioning and things like that. So I understand those things, and so I don't have to internalize it when I do face opposition. Actually, sometimes it's a high.
Yeah. especially when you've been indoctrinated. I think it's even more harder, Jermaine, when you've been indoctrinated when you were a child, and then you reach an age where you want to deconstruct, and there's like layers, of things that you have to work through. And for some people, specifically in the Christian community, it's hard to let go of certain, religious subjects that's been detrimental to humanity. Whether that's hell or the depravity of man, the fall of Adam, is that what it's called? The fall of man. Just different stuff. It's hard to let that go. I know for me, it was very difficult. One reason why I didn't want to let it go, I was afraid how it would affect my relationships with people. And I thought to myself, are they friends with me based on where I'm at theologically? I am consistently growing. I'm not really concrete. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's very shallow, ain't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's like you're my friend up till, I no longer subscribe to where you're at in it. But at the same time, I always gave them grace. I had pastors unfriend me, delete me, warn their church. I think it's great because it gives me more exposure.
Yep.
Warn their church, watch Brother Henry, better watch him. It's like I'm not this bad dude that they're painting out. I'm not sending people to hell. I'm not, all this stuff that they come up with. So, as you said, it can be frustrating because you really think these are like your ride or die buddies, that they're not going anywhere. But like I said, as soon as you start, exposing, as you said, exposing them to truth, they see it. And as you already know, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance is a
It's a
mother lode.
real thing. It's a real
It's a
thing.
real thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. It is. And just to be quite frank, listen, deconstructing is emotionally and mentally dysregulated. Because you're going against, your natural instincts is starting to come alive. We never used that muscle before. We never used our intuitiveness before. We've suppressed a lot of aspects of our humanness, right, and our humanhood. And so your body is trying to come back and resort back to its natural state before the programming. There's a reality, and I just encourage people to look it up, and you may associate with that. It's called post-cult syndrome. And it's a reality to that, that what people experience, the highs and lows emotionally, sometimes the overwhelming thoughts that can take you over, what if this is not right? Like, what's next? But it's a reality, right? Deconstruction, like I said, it's like your body is trying to get back to some sense of normalcy, right? Because you didn't suppress an aspect of your own intellect, your own awareness, your own intuitiveness, and we sacrifice that at the altar of not just conformity, but what is it's a word that I want to use, that we're addicted to: certainty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For religious certainty, we sacrifice aspects of our intellect, the things that's natural, natural intuitiveness, the capacity to reason, just the critical think. We suppressed and repressed a lot of that, and we sacrifice that at the altar of certainty. The addiction to religious certainty is real, and so to see ourselves outside of this context, what is that for my life? It's like it's like starting life all over again.
Yeah.
And that can be very scary, right? Because we've been used to and accustomed to this reality in our lives, and now I have to frame a new way of thinking for my life. I used to just lean on Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I got to lean on I got to lean on me.
Yeah. It can be very damaging. We got about 6 minutes. I don't want the time to run out. Can you tell us about your podcast? I want people to tune in and watch. You have a podcast. It's called My Irreligious Life. Can you tell us how people can connect with that?
Yeah, I am. My podcast is available on all major platforms: Amazon Music, Apple, all the platforms that play podcasts. And all you have to do is just type in the search bar, My Irreligious Life, and we should come up. Other than that, you can always find me on social media, and inbox me. I wanted to talk about deconstruction from a social worker's context, to bring that into the conversation. We as social work, we understand systems and how it impacts people. And so I also wanted to bring an urban perspective to speak to speak into Black spaces, right? And to talk about deconstruction, because deconstruction for us as African American people also is in conjunction with decolonizing, aspects of our faith. A lot of what we inherited from our white slave masters, from the oppressors. And so, I try to bring clarity to the conversations. A lot of people out there talking about deconstruction, and I just wanted to be a part of that space and just bring a unique perspective.
Well, Jermaine, thank you so much. I had a fun time having you on the show today. connect with him. He said you can message him and connect with him on Facebook under Jermaine Thompson. He's a great
Thomas.
guy. Oh yeah, Thomas, Jermaine
Yep.
Thomas. And I really believe that your world would be revolutionized if you are closed-minded or if you're having issues deconstructing and all that. I really believe that what he shared will help you in whatever capacity, wherever you're at. Because all of us are on different journeys, but
Yep.
some people
Yep.
just don't know how to start. And I believe today you laid a beautiful foundation, as to where to start by sharing your own personal journey and your own personal story. And deconstruction is almost, to me, it's like detoxing. It's like getting
Yep.
rid of all the, the bad stuff, and bringing all
Yep.
the healthy, stuff in. It don't always have to be replaced with something. If it is, I mean, it's up to that person. But
Yeah.
But like I said, when you hear people say, "I'm done with religion," and they go from one, to the next, and it's like, everybody's definition of, I guess, deconstruction is, from what I see, is different. But bringing you on to hearing your voice about it definitely brought more clarity to me from a social worker standpoint. Thank you so much, Jermaine, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's apostle. It's apostle.
Right. Let me just say this real quick. I have a saying that says, deconstruct and question everything. And the most important thing to take away from this conversation, if anything, is to build a foundation around your autonomy.
That's awesome. Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection. God bless you. I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank
God bless
you.
you too. Thank you for having me.